So, in New York and here in New Zealand, we saw lots of footage of this film, and at these presentations, you mentioned that James Cameron had like hundreds and hundreds of pages of notes in a script that was massive, 186 pages. And part of the sell with Robert is that he was able to turn it into something smaller, a shootable script that kept the core themes and story alive. So once you take Robert's vision and then start shooting into production, are there still major changes to the story along the way?
You know, there aren't major changes, but there are always changes. And both Robert and Jim are directors who like to work with actors on a scene, on the set, to flush things out. The voice of the character cannot fully be realized until you've cast the role. So Robert would work with Rosa Salazar and Christoph Waltz and would modify sections and dialogue in the film. Same thing with Jennifer Connelly. One time we brought Jim in. We looked at something that Jennifer had raised as a question. Jim came in, wrote some new pages himself for a little moment with Jennifer. Nothing major, but all enhancing it once we know the characters.
With the character of Alita herself, talking to the Weta digital team, the design work behind this character is revolutionary, and we talked about there being like 5,000 iterations of everything from the corners of lips to the shape and size of the eyes. What was the most difficult part of realizing that character, and especially when it comes to like the action set pieces?
You know, the most difficult part of realizing the Alita character was twofold. One, it was honing in on the right size for the eyes, and in that, it's the head, it's the pupils, it's the iris. All those things are tied together. It's not just the eyes, it's everything that goes into them. It's also the refinement of the mouth and how that really works and how that can be compelling, even in an action scene. Because in an action scene, you might have the wide shots, but what makes an action scene work is when you cut in for the close-up, for that moment where you see her flying towards Gruishka and you see that expression on her face. So if we're not getting the right facial expression, the action all falls apart. So the mouth and the lower facial region is something we spent hundreds of hours working on.
And speaking of the action set pieces, we're dealing with characters, non-human characters of different shapes and sizes and limb sizes, but in often cases in like real practical sets in Austin. Right. So what's the most challenging like sequence to bring to life?
You know, I think the most challenging sequence to bring to life was probably the ambush alley fight. One of the sequences you saw where Romo jumps down, they first are with Ito, and then Nisiana. Because Nisiana and Romo are both live action elements that we enhance their bodies through CGI. Alita, of course, is completely CGI. We're locked into the confines and the logistics of a live action set. And making that work and having all of those different elements blend seamlessly from a single scene standpoint was probably the most challenging.
The amount of performance capture work and tech and processes developed for Avatar helped inform some of what you've been able to push forward with Alita. Does the tech and even like the software used and developed for this movie, does that help inform what you're doing with future Avatar films?
So, you know, I was talking to Joe Letteri of Weta Digital, you know, probably a year ago, and we both concluded that the work we're going to do today and now on Alita is going to even have a greater impact on the Avatar sequels than the first movie really had on Avatar. Because we have learned so much. No longer could Weta hide behind an ape skin and fur to bring a facial performance to life. She's out there, human-skinned. She's all there for everybody to see, and it's a new standard that they had to ascribe to.
And I guess that train keeps on rolling. Once you do like Avatar 2 and 3, that tech, would that help inform a potential Alita sequel?
Well, look, I think one of the things that Jim has been great about in his career is that every project that he does with visual effects informs the next. He wrote the scene of the pseudopod into the abyss to see if he could finally make Terminator 2 with the T-1000 coming out of the floor. When we did Avatar, when we did Titanic, we put digital people on the ship as a step to could we do Avatar. When we did Avatar, we realized, yes, we could finally do Alita. So they're all building upon one another.
And with the hundreds, I think you said there's 1,000 pages of notes, and Robert saw like 600 of them or something. Did those notes include like a blueprint of what could be future Alita stories?
You know, I think we tried not to focus so much on what the future stories would be. There are some big, bold concepts that would come out of the manga. Yeah. Of where the stories might go, because we didn't want to do anything that would conflict with where they might go. But we also did not want to have the hubris to go spend a lot of time on it before we made something that audiences told us they wanted a sequel on.
And if that can happen, and there's a long time gap between Avatar 1 and 2, are we going to have to wait that long for another Alita?
You know, look, if audiences want another Alita, I'm sure with Robert, we could. Robert does things much faster than Jim generally does.
That's fair. Thank you so much. It looks great.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your time.